Hi, I'm Connor Lorenz, and this is my best final project. The first skill that I'll be performing today is how to treat for a diabetic emergency. There are two different types of diabetic emergencies. One is insulin shock, which is pretty much as a result from a lack of sugar, while the other one is diabetic coma, which is from pretty much too much sugar. And the symptoms for insulin shock are rapid pulse in breathing, weakness, dizziness, altered consciousness, vision difficulties, sweating, headaches, numbness in the hands and feet, and hunger. Now, to treat for insulin shock, the first thing you do is to give them sugar. Actually, the first thing you do for everything is to check the scene for safety, but we all know that already anyways. So the next thing you do is you just try giving him sugar. If he's conscious, make sure he's conscious if you give him sugar. So yeah, you just give him sugar, and he eats the sugar, and hopefully that'll cure him, but if not, then we're going to have to call 911. And the next thing you do would be to monitor pulse and breathing. So, take the pulse of the neck, listen to breathing or whatnot, or just make sure he's breathing regularly. And then you want to watch for signs of shock. Now, with a diabetic coma, the symptoms are confusion, drowsiness, deep and rapid breathing. Then we have peculiar, like fruity or sweet smelling breath, altered consciousness, thirst and dehydration, and fever. Those are the symptoms for a diabetic coma. And to treat a diabetic coma, it's just the same thing, except usually you don't want to give them sugar because they have too much sugar already. Even though sugar doesn't necessarily hurt them, so if you're not sure, then give them sugar anyways, as kind of a backup thing. But everything else is the same as insulin shock in terms of caring for it, except for the sugar part. Now, the next skill I'll be performing is how to care for a conscious choking adult. The first thing you do with a conscious choking adult, as you do for everything, is check the scene for safety. Then you give a quick consent, get quick consent by saying, "Hi, I'm partially trained in," you say your name, "I'm Connor. I'm partially trained in CPR. Can I help?" And they'll probably nod yes, because they're choking, which is the symptom of choking is the fact that they might be, they're holding the choke sign up. Now, before they actually start choking though, and they're just coughing, you want to tell them, keep coughing, keep coughing. In the moment they stop coughing and they can't breathe, that's the moment you have someone call 911. So you point to someone, hey, call 911. Anytime you're trying to perform any skill, you want to have someone else call 911 instead of yourself, because you need to be doing the skill. Now, the first thing you do after you have consent for the person is you do 5 back blows in the middle of the back with your heel of your hand. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then you do 5 abdominal thrusts, right just above the navel. There's not navel on this dummy here, but you can guess what the navel is, the belly button. So just above the navel, you put your thumb here, your other hand like this, and you just go up like this. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And you keep doing 5 abdominal thrusts, or 5 back blows and 5 abdominal thrusts until EMS arrives, or until the choking is done with, or is obvious signs of life, and so on and so forth. Alright, so the next skill that I will be performing is how to treat for CPR of a child, and how to use the AED on a child too. Now, when it comes to a child, CPR is a little gentler, but the first thing we always do, like always, is we check the scene for safety. After that, if we see, usually when you treat for CPR, you might walk into a room and the child might not be doing anything. You're saying, "Oh, I have to make sure he's not asleep." So what you might do is say, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" Tap and shout, like, "Are you okay?" to get his attention. If he doesn't respond, then you want to have someone call 911. Now, to do the actual CPR part, first thing you want to do is look, listen, and feel for breathing. Just to double check here. So, do you look, listen, feel for no longer than 10 seconds. Actually, I was wrong before. You call 911 after you do that. If they're not breathing, then you have someone else call 911. Now, to perform CPR, it's 30 compressions, 2 breaths. So you start with 30 compressions, heel the hand like this, left hand or whatever hand on top, interlocked fingers, heel the hand in the middle of the chest, and straight, make sure your elbows are locked, you want to be straight up and down, and you go like that 30 times, and you want to do that to about 100 beats per minute, which is to the beat of Staying Alive. And for this one, you only want to do 1.5 to 2 inches on a child because obviously they're not as strong as an adult. So make sure you don't want to actually like injure their ribs or something in their body down there. It can make it worse. Now then you do the breaths, 2 breaths. The breaths they usually last about 1 second. You inhale and exhale. Make sure though when you're giving the breaths, you tilt the head back and pinch the nose. So that way, and you do that again, make sure you have the chest return to its original position before you get the second breath. So you're doing 30 compressions, 2 breaths, until either EMS arrives, until an AED arrives, until you become too exhausted to continue, or until there's obvious signs of life. Now, when an AED does become ready to use, well, here's my model AED, right here. The first thing you do when you get the AED, turn on. Simple enough. Turn on. It'll tell you a bunch of stuff to do, and it'll tell you to apply the pads. For a child, sometimes you might have to apply 1 pad on the front and 1 pad on the back. But for here, we'll just assume the child is large enough that we can put 1 on the upper right of his chest right here, and 1 on the lower left right here. So obviously the string is long enough on this, let's just pretend it is. So after that you have 1 on the upper right, or his upper right, and 1 on the lower left abdomen right here. And then it'll say analyzing shock. And it might say no shock advised or shock advised. If shock advised, press the shock button, make sure no one's touching it though, touching the human. So, and then it'll say shock delivered. And then you just keep the pads on, and then you do your 30 compressions again, and 2 breaths until EMS arrives, till obvious signs of life, or until you become too tired. Usually you do 5 cycles of the 30 compressions and 2 breaths. So that's how you do those skills. That's my best final project.